It's me, your boy. Hey guys, I want to talk to you guys today about technology and in particular, what do you need to really get into PC? Because we get this quite often in our Discord, we get this quite often in questions when I'm building for clients, or Red has a completely different take over on our podcast, Omnia Obscura. Check the description for a link. I want to talk about upscaling and the necessity that you might be looking for getting into your PC, essentially. What should you be looking for? What do you need? What do you really need? Like, what do you genuinely really need? Well, very use case, honestly. Not everybody is going to need a super rig like mine. Not everybody is going to need 22 terabytes like I do. You might only need 1 terabyte or 2. You might not need SSDs. You might not need 16 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabytes of RAM. You might only need 8. You might not need a 12th gen CPU. So, all that aside, gaming on PC is really interesting because what it allows you to do is craft your PC for your necessary use case. Are you an artist who wants to use Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop on the side? Are you a super user who wants to have YouTube open on one monitor and all your chats on another while you're playing your favorite multiplayer game on your main monitor? Do you need 3 monitors? Or do you only need 1? Is a laptop more convenient for you, or is a desktop more convenient for you? These are all things that are really important that go misunderstood in the gaming space, especially with people transitioning from your atypical console gaming experience into the higher end and more boutique gaming experience that a PC is able to provide you. The easiest way to look at this is, who are you as a person? What do you already play? Where do you spend your money? And if the answer is things like Fortnite and Call of Duty and Tarkov, well, you're on Tarkov, so you're already on PC, but let's remove Tarkov. Let's say you want to play Tarkov or Marauders or the Cycle. I think Cycle's on PC or on console, I don't know. But you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm going to need a 2080, I'm going to need a 3080, I'm going to need an i9. Well, no, not really. If you design your computer appropriately, you won't need any of that. You can actually upcycle and recycle old parts in order to build that computer for yourself. Or if you're more interested in old games, or you want a portable laptop that's able to run emulators and things like that on the go, and you just plan on throwing it on your lap, maybe tossing a controller in your hands, upcycling an older laptop with, say, a 1060 might be a lot better for you, because you can go on eBay and maybe spend $200, clean up a existent 1060 laptop, maybe take out an old hard drive that's running poorly and put in a whatever SSD and really give that computer a new life with you behind the helm. It might have 8 gigabytes of RAM, but only using 1 RAM spot. Unscrew the back, pop in another 8 gigabyte RAM chip, and now you have a 16 gigabyte 1060 laptop that could be running an i5 5th gen, i5 6th gen, 7th gen CPU, which I understand we're going into 13th gen, but when you're just expecting to play games on the go and emulating things, it might be within your best interest to simply upcycle an existing laptop and understand the use case that you're applying to that computer. If you want to be a streamer, right? And let's say you're kind of balling on a budget, right? And you don't have $4,000 to build a top of the line streaming PC. Well, let's go ahead and break this all down. We know that you can stream with a 750 Ti, a GTX 750 Ti. We know that you can do that. You can go grab a 4th gen Intel CPU and 32 gigabytes of DDR3, which is super cheap right now. All of these will run your PC extremely well, but not at the highest resolution. You might be streaming and playing at 720p, but we have confirmed that things like Cyberpunk will run on a 750 Ti, which is kind of impressive for that technology from that long ago. Put that into context, the 750 Ti really was just a competitor for the console space when Xbox 360 and PS3 were around. So to be running something like Cyberpunk on a PC that old, pretty impressive. But what would this PC be utilized for as a 750 Ti, an old Intel chipset? Probably things like CSGO, Fortnite, games that are considered esports, Valorant, that are highly optimized to run on just about anything. League of Legends is another great example, or Pokemon Unite. That's where this computer really would shine. You're able to utilize that computer for these esport games, these entry-level games that are not going to tax a computer too heavily. So you, as a user of a computer, should be looking at these things and wondering, well, I could buy a 3080 and an i7 12700K, but if you're only playing CSGO and you're only playing Valorant, why would you spend that kind of money? And you could be responding with like future proofing. Well, that's not really how technology works. See, the game's not really going to change too much. That's going to tank your performance on a GPU and a CPU, right? So that argument doesn't really hold much water when you only want it for specific things. If you don't plan on keeping around gaming after the fact, and you're gonna have all these crazy expensive components, and that computer just goes to waste after your popularity with that game ends, it's a waste of money. And what we need to do in this economy is upcycle old components and recycle old components into use case PCs. So media centers is a great example. You don't need the newest and most powerful hardcore hardware to build a living room mouse and keyboard media center PC, one that accesses YouTube and Netflix and all your streaming services, but also allows you to play Jackbox gaming when friends come over. It allows you to experience things like emulators, play some Mario Kart Double Dash when friends are over, and connect up 4 controllers. You don't need super powerful computers for those purposes. So hopping onto something like Walmart or Amazon and grabbing yourself this super expensive computer for something as mundane as basic compute tasks would be a waste of money. Upcycling in those regards is a much smarter investment, especially for a media center creation. We are to a point where emulators are so powerful that you could pretty much run them on some like Amazon Fire Sticks and stuff like that, and adding a computer element to that just makes it that much better, because you're going to get definite frames per second, you're going to get good fidelity, some up-resing, it'll run better on, say, a TV, and you might be able to get things like Clone Hero, which is a Guitar Hero clone, and have that experience again with your friends on a budget. Because you're not expecting that computer to run something like Tarkov while streaming at the highest fidelity and still maintaining 144 frames per second on this super high-end monitor. This is where upcycling comes in, you know. So those kinds of PCs are super good for just chilling. But let's get. I want to go back to the streamers for a second, right? If you're a streamer who just wants to stream the games that they like and they can't get like a capture card and they can't get all this fancy stuff, or maybe you're a mobile streamer, you want to stream things like COD Mobile and things like that, you don't need to go out of your way to buy a 500, or that's actually rather cheap, $1,500 laptop in order to use something like Let's View and OBS to stream. You could honestly grab an i3 GT750M computer from 12 years ago. I think that's about 12 years ago. And it'll be perfectly fine for your use case. You might have to take the hard drive out and install an SSD. It's $50. You know, you can run to Walmart and get a 120 gigabyte SSD, slap it in there. I mean, if your use case is only streaming, why would you go out of your way to spend all that money when you get the exact same experience for 120 bucks? See, that's just business smart. You know, you're applying the applicable amount of information to the project at hand, and you're decreasing your costs. This is just basic capitalism. And if you can't grasp that, well, then you're the sucker of capitalism. You're the one that we are milking for your money. And I mean, I run a business. I mean, I have to make money when I'm building computers, when I'm programming computers, when I'm editing computers, and when I'm cleaning computers. I need to charge people money for these kinds of things. But very often, these people are overbuilding their computers. I recently had the luxury of working on, well, I didn't get to physically work on it, but I had a remote job that I got to do where he was utilizing a 5780K Gen 5 Intel CPU, and we were talking and we were having issues, and he ended up having to get a CMOS and all these other things that fixed the motherboard. His computer works perfectly fine now, and he put a 2080 Super in it, and that computer runs everything he needs it to run. It gives him the capabilities to stream through NVENC, which is an encoding software through OBS, if you didn't know. And this computer will run Tarkov and anything else, and he purchased that GPU for $400 and that computer for $600, and he gets to resell a 1070, which good CPU or GPU. So he ended up upcycling a computer that somebody else didn't want, something that they didn't need, found a upcycled 2080 Super, popped it in, had the computer repaired, and he's off to the races. I mean, this is just good business at the end of the day. This is somebody who understands that if he went to Newegg and charted out a 2080 Super build with modern components, it would be running him into the twos of thousands of dollars and would be unobtainable for the common person. So instead, he chose to go with an older CPU, recognizing that he could upgrade once he understood PCs better. He could understand that if he took the time to learn information technology, IT work, he could then do it himself. And once he got all the hard stuff out of the way and the computer is set up and ready to go, he's set. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. That computer will run perfectly fine. He decided to take off the Intel cooler and invest in a nice water cooler, also upcycled. He bought it off of Facebook, got the cheap, and it works perfectly fine. This is upcycling to the nth degree. This is taking your expectations of a high-end gaming PC and understanding that sometimes that's unrealistic or unobtainable, and just cutting his expectations down a little bit, just a little bit. He could have gone with a 12th gen, but he went with the 5th gen. He went used, and he looked for something that fit his niche, and it worked. That's upcycling for a studio or a high-end gaming space, but not everybody is looking for it, right? Not everybody needs super high-end. So what would you look for in, say, a laptop space or a mobile space? Because maybe this is too much. Maybe you don't have a big living space. Maybe you're in college. Maybe you're in a dorm. Maybe you're in the city. And I see this all the time. I see this all the time. Every time I have a remote job into the city and these people come on webcam, you know, their wall is right to their back and their bed's right there. And they don't have a lot of room, and you know, they're having issues streaming, they're having issues with their podcast creation, their, you know, whatever it is, editing software, it's too hot. They can't keep their apartment cool because it's so small. Neither way, I'm not shaming studio apartments, it's just that's the reality of the world we live in. So what I usually recommend is, well, what laptop do you have? Where did you get it? And very often it's like Walmart. I ordered it off Amazon. It was like $120 brand new, and it's these crappy Chromebooks. It's these crappy ThinkPads that have like base model AMD processors, base model Intel processors, garbage iGPUs, and they're not meant for what they're taxing that computer to do. They're meant for light typing, they're meant for browsing Facebook, browsing Reddit, that kind of thing. They're meant to just be throw it in your backpack. If it breaks, it's whatever. You know what I mean? But you could have one of those computers and you can set up and learn how to VM into your other computer. So you can leave your nice laptop at home, pick up a $200 whatever Chromebook. Even better, you can just grab it off of the same used market. You could spend $50, get a Chromebook, spend $500, get a nice high-end laptop that has like a 1660 Ti in it, and that could be your render and your workstation, and it's going to be faster, it's going to edit videos better, it's going to have better audio processing because it has been built for those processes. And you can stream off of that computer a lot better, you can record off of that computer a lot better, because within OBS you'll have access to things like NVENC, and you won't be limited to underperforming hardware that is not meant for that purpose. We typically don't assign a computer a specific use case. You might hear it's a, ultrabook. Well, what does that mean realistically? Well, an ultrabook just means it's a high-end Chromebook. It could just be a Chromebook running with a base model i3. Those are not worth your money. They're just waste being produced for no apparent reason, which is crazy. So when you're browsing and you want to get into something, think of things from a business perspective. What do you want to do with it? What is the value of the long term of purchasing that computer? And if you build it yourself, do you need all those extra crazy frames? I mean, sure, 1,000 frames per second might sound phenomenal, but is that realistic? Can you even display that? Because in order to display something like 160 frames per second, you're still going to need a $300+ monitor, which for me as a speedrunner is realistic. I'm going to need to go fast. I need to see every single frame that I can. In some games I don't. I want to turbo that down to 60 or turn on VSync for some games and get a nice, clean, smooth stream rate. Because choppiness on a stream can be really annoying. So my computer, because I do cinematic streams, might be more useful because that's what I'm looking to do. But if you're just setting up Let's View and doing mobile gaming, you really don't need anything too crazy as long as you have a decent i5, 6th gen or better Intel processor. Same thing with AMD. It's like Ryzen, let's say 1500G or something like that in a laptop, and a decent iGPU. As long as you have, in this case, a decent iGPU, you can render those frames and send them out just fine as long as your internet connection is stable. You're not really reliant on the GPU to process anything at that point because it's just receiving information, transcoding it, and sending that information. So you don't need to spend $750 on the super high-end laptop that has, all the things that a gamer would want. You can easily spend $300 and get a i3 with a GT 750M or a 1050 Ti in it, because you're not going to be utilizing those cores. You're not going to be over stressing that computer. You're not going to be streaming Borderlands 3 in 4K with a ray trace mod on and a depth of field across 3 monitors. That's just not what you're going to be doing. That's not realistic. And you might be saying to yourself, it would be cool to be able to do that. But in order to do that, you need to invest in that. Consoles are a one use case scenario, right? You set it underneath your TV, you have your controller, you press the button, and your Roku turns on. That's a very common joke within the PC community, because when we look at something like a console, we see a lot of people utilizing it for Netflix. We see a lot of people looking at it for just, mundanity. But that does exist on the PC side as well. Within the big, crazy PC gaming landscape, there is a joke of we spent $3,000 on our PC just to watch YouTube. also a joke because you never took the time to study things like VMing, which is virtual machining, where you can carry a cheap laptop with you and go out and connect to the Wi-Fi and connect to your PC and Steam Link and play things on a cheaper laptop, but use your source PC as the render system, render farm, which is actually what I do here. I have my whole PC set up to a render, and I have two cheap laptops floating around. I don't know where they are, but you can VM into my desktop and take a portion of its power and play games somewhere completely different. When I go to the cabin, I can hook my phone up to my laptop and pull games on my desktop as well. This has a lot of utilitarian purposes for the future. If I choose to travel, I'll be able to render things out through the internet and directly store them on my home PC and set them up to upload on a stable connection from my home PC instead of having to do it from a hotel Wi-Fi per se. There are a lot of things that you can learn and utilize within the PC gaming sphere, and I hope this video inspires more people to study and learn and get interested in upcycling and recycling, because we have so many great gaming components that are just being pushed aside because we vanitize these extremely high-end PCs constantly here on this platform, which is completely useless. It's not doing anything. You don't need the highest end PCs. I just want to reiterate that one more time. You don't need the PCs. You need to take a look at what you're going to be doing as a person and buying introspectively for what you need. So with that, I just want to leave you with that thought, because silicon prices are not going down. They're only going to go up at this rate. We need to start recycling old technology. Grab a bin and just start piling old technology you don't want. Find your local technology recycling center and start taking it in, because if we don't, technology is only going to get more and more pricey. We're only going to leak more mercury and lead into our foundations. We're only going to do more damage to our world. So, you know, taking somebody's old laptop and giving it another 3 or 4 years of life for $150 is a good investment. And learning how to utilize tech in that way and look for, oh, I need more RAM, or I want a different hard drive, or I want an SSD. You know, looking around and grabbing components that are used and just slapping it in to make your computer a little bit more powerful for the time being is very useful. So thank you guys so much for listening me rant about doing better in the sense of technology. And if you're interested in what I'm doing to do things better, I personally recycle all of my tech as best as I can. I take old cell phones and I make them emulation machines. I have mirror casting devices and things like that. I make USB docks that you can plug it in and you can play GameCube games off of that phone on a monitor or even on the phone itself. I take old controllers and I connect them up to Android so people can purchase these little phones and they can be used on the go or at home with little docking stations that output USB-C signals to HDMI. And that's just super useful for preserving technology, preserving these phones and these devices, and I sell them very cheap. I take I take people's old phones and I modify them to run, say, Pokemon MMO or whatever game they want, and I show them how to connect up controllers and mice and keyboards and how to display them out to a monitor and utilize them for more than just their intended function of being a phone, because there's so much more they're capable of doing. It's just taking the time to learn what they can do. I hope this inspires you to explore that. And if you're one of those people who are really into Raspberry Pis and things like that, I want you to understand that a lot of that stuff you can just do with an old phone. Why don't you just take an old phone and use it as a Raspberry Pi. I mean, I have a Sony Xperia here that I use as my PlayStation 1 emulator on the go. It's awesome. We just Velcro it up to the back of the seat and play Silent Hill in the back of the car while we're traveling, and it's good fun. So I hope this is helpful. And if you have any questions or what you could do better, or join the Discord. We love that kind of stuff. The engineering conversations down below. You can join our Discord. It's great. Red is super interested in that stuff. I'm super interested in that stuff. And there's quite a few people in the server that are makers who are doing awesome stuff. So, see you over there. Tag me on Twitter. Tag me on Instagram. What are you making? What are you making today? I want to do the same thing on TikTok. I did a whole playthrough of me modifying my Xbox to run Linux and how I connected a mouse and keyboard to it. And yeah. Have a great day, everyone.